We have a really wonderful panel of Latinas this morning to speak with you about the fact of the matter is that it's the fastest growing small business segment in America. It is incredible to see the kind of growth that's occurring thank you, Edgar, for our Latinas in the United States. It's a really proud moment for me as a small business owner. I've owned my strategic communications agency for 15 years, went through the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Institute, which was wonderful, and a real catalyst for change for me. And it is incredible to be here with all of you. I was listening to Administrator Guzman and Daniel, the president of the Aspen Institute, Dominica, and I just feel like we are at a moment that is really important for all of us, and it's really time for us to make sure that all of you and all of our entrepreneurs out there have a real opportunity for success. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce our panelists this morning. First, I'm going to introduce Janie Barrera, who is the president, CEO, and founder of LiftFund. There she is. And Janie serves a really important role as the top, really, micro lending, which you'll hear a lot about, which is really important for a lot of our Latino-owned businesses. We also have Rosa Santana, who is the founder and chief executive officer of the Santana Group. And Rosa is another incredible top-tier minority woman-owned business and companies. She's just done amazing work in this field. And then I think joining us virtually, are we going to have Mirna Sonora? There she is. She is the regional vice president of South Florida Prospera. So we have an incredible panel for you today, and I'm looking forward to moderating with you. So let's talk about the reason why Latinas start their own businesses. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm going to come and sit down with you because I feel a little more comfortable there.
I think I'm going to take that question, if I can, Lisa.
Yes, please.
My pleasure. Hello, everybody. Hello to that great team from Miami that I heard rooting in the background. Thank you, guys. I'm so sorry I'm unable to be with you all this morning, but it's an important question, and I'm going to, at the risk of sounding repetitive, I'm going to say that the answer is rooted firmly in the family, and especially in the home. When you consider that the median net worth for a white household is $188,000 versus $36,000 for a Hispanic household, you understand what the motivation is immediately. I think that Latina mothers, wives, sisters, daughters aren't going to sit by and really let that opportunity slip by without some kind of immediate action. And I have to tell you, at Prospera, across the regions we serve, we see housewives trying to monetize their culinary skills by starting empanada companies, yes, but we also see Latina women who have been second in command, going off on their own, taking the risk of becoming entrepreneurial. And I think that's the challenge that's on the table. We need to be able to support these women to do more and to be able to survive. And so many of you that are entrepreneurs that are on our panel understand exactly what the challenges are, but you also have felt firsthand what the lack of support looks like. So I think that's where we're at right now. It's a pivotal moment. Women are taking chances, risks that they've never been able to take before, because they're also rooted in economic need. The time is now. The disparity is great. The need is greater. And I think that we must come together and support this opportunity that women are having the chance to take right now. And I have to tell you, you heard Secretary Guzman say that minorities start businesses 6 times the amount of any other white group. Well, consider Hispanic women start businesses at twice the rate of any other minority. So, the time is now, and it's the time for us to come up with a response is also now.
Thank you, Myrna. And how about you, Janie? Tell me about what you've seen with the Latinas and why they're starting their own businesses.
Yeah, like Myrna says, the time is now. We're finally getting recognized. Just think about it. Our mothers, our grandmothers, who were the ones that built these communities? I recently was at a funeral where they were talking about the women who had built that church with their tamales, right? With the raffle tickets, all those things. So, but it was considered a side hustle. It was not considered their real job. The real job is to keep the family together. Well, have we considered that it was that business that kept that family together as well? We at Christmas time, we all get together to make tamales. Well, we also have been around families who have gathered around their business as well. I came from an entrepreneurial family as well. And so, I remember being, 14 and my very first job was in my parents' restaurant. I remember the very first, tip that I got was a 50-cent piece. And back in the late 60s, that was a big tip. And so the idea of entrepreneurship has always been with us. The idea, though, of borrowing money and using other people's money is foreign to us, to our communities. And so what we need to do, as everybody's been saying this morning, is level that financial playing field and raise these balance sheets because we have been growing assets, but they're like in little bitty increments. The time is now for us to take these big chunks of dollars that are going to be available to us and make a noise.
That's absolutely true. Right. I think about when I first started my business, Rosa, and how, they're still asking me for my husband's signature. They were still looking for, and I kept thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm making good money already. Why can't I take out a loan independent? But tell me a little bit about why you think Latinas are doing this work.
So my opinion is that many women these days are leaving corporate America, like I did.
That's me too.
And some of us are forced to do whatever we need to do, right? But when we're the second in command or the third in command, and we know we can do more, and we want to do it for ourselves because either we have a long-term objective of, creating family wealth or just taking care of our children, right? Making sure they get a good education, that kind of thing. We're leaving to try things out, right? In my case, I left corporate America and I thought, I have a choice. I can go get another job or I can start something myself. And it's not easy for all of the reasons that we're talking about. And I know we're going to talk about capital and learning and understanding how to access capital. But I believe that more and more women are leaving, not just large companies, even medium-sized companies. They're leaving to try something on their own, to have more flexibility, more opportunity, and to hopefully build wealth, right, for their families.
Absolutely. I mean, to soar, as you suggested, I think some of us experience that. You go into corporate America, and especially during maybe our time, you could only go so far, and then, you sort of start bumping into walls and ceilings, as they say, but then you go off on your own and you can soar. However, there are a lot of challenges when you start your own business. You may know a certain area, a certain field, but you don't know everything. So let's talk a little bit about that. Myrna, do you want to talk a little bit about what you think some of the challenges are for starting your own business?
Absolutely. And they are no different if you're a woman, but maybe they are magnetized if you are, for all of the reasons that you've already mentioned. Look, many businesses are being started by women that are coming to us from other countries. So the first impactful challenge is adapting to what you know about conducting a business in your home country versus what running a business is like in the United States. So there's the challenge of adaptability. There's the need for a bridge to take you from point A, where your country of origin, all the way to where you have to be now. Then there's a natural mistrust of institutions, also born from our home countries, where you now have to flip that switch and understand that the way to achieve a possibly functioning sustainable business, forget scalable, forget growth, forget any of that stuff, is by being able to establish a relationship with trusted professional partners, your banker, your attorney, your media consultant, things like your lawyer. So that's, I think, the first sort of hurdle that no one identifies. That is one of many hurdles on the path to accessing capital, by the way. And I know maybe it's because that's the space that I work in, but I know how transformative explaining that process to a business owner can be. But it is especially empowering when that business owner happens to be a woman and is being exposed to these opportunities for the first time. So not only are you becoming a business owner, but you're becoming a decision maker.
Right.
And I think that work is vital. I think it must be understood as the sort of natural path toward achieving capital at the end. It has to be an integral part of what we do with our businesses.
And Janie, you have done a lot of this micro lending to small business owners.
Yes. You know, I think navigator, using the word navigator right now is so appropriate because we have helping people navigate, especially women, because there is that good old boy network. Well, we're now creating our good old girl network, finally. And so what that means is helping find that navigation piece for the good old girl network. And if we, there's a lot of accelerators right now. COVID has taught us so many things, has taught me so many things. One thing is nothing has boundaries, nothing. So going to a webinar, going to a seminar is right in your kitchen now. All you have to do is turn your monitor on and have access to all of these accelerators that are out there. And then also, Shark Tank and things like that have brought so many ideas that now even chambers of commerce, other accelerators in different cities are actually coming up with these Shark Tank-like things, right? And so we have a customer down in the valley there is a valley in Texas, by the way, not just California. She had a salsa. And so she went to this competition with H-E-B, which is a big grocery chain in Texas, and got it, right? And so, oh my God, now what do I do?
Now what?
So I've got this little bit of money that I got, $10,000, but I need hundreds.
Yes.
And so what does she do? She comes to LiftFund. And, you can't go to the bank. She could never have gone to the bank. She's not established, long enough. Banks would love to, and I know there's bankers in the room, they would love to work on these things, but they're regulated. And so we as CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, we can then make the underwriting that is correct for that community. And so then we lend the money to her, and eventually we have a terrible business practice of we want to lose our best customers because we want them to graduate from our CDFI and go into the traditional financial institutions because they can. Right now they cannot. And so our jobs are to help them get there. And I love Rosa's story because when we had an opportunity to talk before the panel and just to listen to her where she started and where you are now. I mean, you're one of the most successful women in your industry.
And that's really important to amplify, Rosa. I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that. And also other things that we have faced as Latina business owners. The fact that, you don't have someone who can look at your contracts like you do in corporate, or you don't have someone to run financial projections like you do in corporate. And all of a sudden you have to do it all.
Absolutely, and that's a really good point. Actually, when you work in corporate America, you are building teams, you're bringing in big sales, but you're not running a business. You're not out there looking for insurance and making sure you can be bankable. We don't even know how to access, or have access to financing, right? At least in my case, I didn't. And when I, veered out and became an entrepreneur, I knew how to build teams and I knew how to sell. And I had a lot of customers that wanted to do business with me. But the back office stuff, everything that came along with it, was really difficult. And unfortunately, we don't see the light, which takes us to hiring perhaps the best people. It took me years to hire a CFO, and now I can't believe I did without a CFO for the longest time. But but I'm still alive, and I'm still kicking and kicking pretty high, so that's good. But I will tell you that I wish that I knew at that time where to go for somebody to push me, right? I did all the pushing, but I didn't do the pushing in all the right areas because I didn't know better. The other thing with us as Latinos is we're very, at least I have been and I still am, we're very careful about letting anybody into our financial life, our credit background, all of that. And, all of these years later, we say, okay, gosh, if I had done this, maybe I would have gotten that, and done even better. But at the end of the day, right, when you're continuing to work at your business and figure out how to get to the point where you can afford to hire the folks that you need to back you up. I mean, today I have an organization where I have financial analysts, I have a CFO, I have, people that are doing all of this back, I can just say, hey, I want to know if I'm going to be able to make money if I bring in this deal. And they're like, how big is it? What is it? What are we going to do? What's your gross margin? What gross margin do you want to make? And what's your bottom line opportunity? And when they come to me and here's a whole analysis, it's like real easy to make those decisions,
Absolutely.
right? So I think that's what we lack, and we've lacked.
Yeah, and I think, Rosa, what you're talking about is investing in yourself.
Yep.
I've had so many opportunities to speak to students, for example, and, a lot of them say, oh, well, college is expensive, and if I can't get a grant, or if I don't have need-based financial aid, which thank you for providing more need-based financial aid to our students, because that's so important. But I always say, invest in yourself. You've got to invest in yourself. It's okay to take out a loan. It's okay to go. You will make more money. But we need to learn, even as entrepreneurs, that investing in yourself is important. And part of that is with our teams.
Right. And I think, educating, I take personal pride in mentoring women, because I wish that I had that kind of a mentor as I was growing up in my business. I had wonderful mentors in corporate America, but they couldn't help me on this other side,
Yes.
right? They didn't know how to do what I had to do.
Yep.
So that kind of help and that kind of mentoring is critical. And when you're running when you're running a business, it's hard to do that and also make the time, but you just have to do it.
Absolutely. And Myrna.
Absolutely, Rosa. Absolutely. You're on point. And I think that that's a critical point, because mentoring is important.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding how ultimately we are able to come up with projections or read a contract or determine if getting into this lease agreement will have the right ROI at the end for us. Doing that is critical. And I think what happens is that if we only focus on accessing capital and sort of skip all those steps, accessing capital to be able to graduate, like Jamie wants us to being bankable, is a lot harder. So I think what we're talking about now, and I saw, for example, with the Navigator grant opportunity, is that we're talking about building infrastructure for a small business, where there is focus on a back office, because that's what's going to get you to eventually be able to first access Jamie and then be bankable. And for me, that's very exciting, because I think that we've been skipping some steps, and I think we've been paying the price for that over decades.
Absolutely. I wanted to remind you that if you do have a question, there are cards on your desk, on the tables, that you can fill out, and we'll answer those questions in a little bit. And we also have an opportunity, if you are online, to put questions in the chat. Let's talk a little bit about online platforms and the digital divide, and whether or not we've been able to pivot appropriately in this time, or if there are things we need to be thinking about in that space. Janie?
Well, I'll talk about from the lending side, not necessarily from the business side. Maybe you can address that, Rosa, on how you're handling the digital world. But if we don't change the way we do business in the CDFI world, we're going to miss the boat. And it's a hard transition, because those of us who have been working in our communities believe that you have to hold our hand the entire time. Well, we haven't been able to hold anybody's hand, right, the last 12, 18, 20 months. So we've learned from that we did more what we call technical assistance. We did 1,000 more hours in 2020 than we did in 2021. We weren't even born in 1920. So my point is that point I made earlier, right, having no boundaries. So we can do much more online than we could have before, but we weren't pushed into it like we are now, right? So for us, as a financial institution, we too have to compete with those online lenders. You can go online right now and Google whatever you want about getting a small business loan, and they're going to give you most likely a loan, because they're going to get all this intelligence that's out there about you and give you a loan within 30 minutes. But what's going to happen though is that they're not analyzing you as a business and you as the way you work in the community. And so I believe they're putting you in harm's way, because can you really pay that back? Because if you haven't been able to get the loan from the bank and you go to one of these places, then you're most likely don't know how to use money. And that's what got you there in the first place. And so then I believe it's our responsibility as a not-for-profit to learn how to best underwrite online right now. We may not be able to do it in 30 minutes, but if we could do it in 24 hours, 48 hours, that'd be pretty cool. Right now it takes us weeks to underwrite a loan, because we're in the process of that transition period. But Selena Peña is here. She's our Chief Growth Officer. And her role is to make sure that we streamline as much as we can so that we can make loans much faster to our minority population, right? LiftFund is open to anybody. But who do we serve? Minorities and women-owned businesses, because we don't have access to the traditional capital. And we also have Lupe Mares here with the El Paso contingency, yoo-hoo, right? And so Lupe's job is to bring in and find those businesses and going out and telling people, hey, we're here to help. And so, collectively, I think that we are going to be able to, jump those hurdles that have been there in the past, because we all know what those pain points are.
Right.
Let's fix those pain points.
Right. And Rosa, virtual is the new norm, but that's a little challenging in some ways.
It's actually extremely challenging, to be honest with you, and more challenging to people like myself that are not so excited about it. But we have to get excited about it, right? There's no other path. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that COVID did so much in my different businesses. Under the Santana group, there's several companies, and so for my bilingual call center that I have based in El Paso, we had to, within 36 hours, get everybody home with technology to connect and work from home. 36 hours.
Wow.
It was incredible, right? But we did it. And it's very interesting, because our client was not excited about it, but they knew that we had to do this. Yes. Call centers in El Paso were in trouble in a big way with COVID. Anyone that was closer than 6 feet to the other workstation was potentially going to create a major issue. So we said we need to do this, and we basically said to our client, this is the way we'll be able to service you. We had a whole plan. So we worked day and night to do that, right? In our manufacturing facility, it was very different. We basically followed the rules of our customer. Things worked out okay, but we were not working for 8 weeks.
Wow.
And 8 weeks is a lot.
That's a long
Because
time.
guess what? We still had to pay our people, right?
Of course.
And then on the sales side, the interesting thing is that, we talked a lot about how women can get help and access to capital, but access to relationships with other women-owned businesses is really important too. And through an organization that I belong to, we actually have, I think it's monthly meetings where one of the women presents on a piece of technology. And she presented a technology, an application, I believe it is, where it's to digitize your sales process. So imagine now you can be anywhere. I can be on my phone and I can be making a sales presentation right from an app on my phone. That's not just me doing, I'm following. And I was so impressed with that because I'm a salesperson and that's what I love to do. And I want to be able to do it from anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really important.
It is amazing to see how much.
I do think before we get off this topic, I identify so much with what Rosa is saying because it's what I see on a daily basis from different businesses, male or female owned. I do want to say that the digital divide is real.
It is.
And the opportunity to access an app doesn't mean that you, as a business owner, are ready to understand what that app can do for you and to use it accordingly.
Yep.
So I think that's another real need that we must identify as we move at warp speed toward getting on the only solution left, which is the digital platform. No negativity with regards to the need for it, but some caution as it relates to getting people ready to be able to perform in that space.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's funny. I think it's interesting because I know we're all from an era where it was person to person. Everything about our business was person to person, and all of our teams now are generally digital savvy. I mean, they're
I think the jury is still out as to how we're doing.
It's a balance.
With regards to building those relationships with our, with our teams, but also with our customers.
There's no
I'm not
question.
sure. I think that it's business as usual, and that the fact that we're doing it virtually is as good as when we were doing it in person. I think that there's a lot that remains to be seen about this transition that we've been forced into, but we didn't really have a time to plan.
Yeah, I know I have people on my team who are incredible on the digital side, and they can pitch stories, everything without picking up the phone ever. Right. And I'm always saying, do you ever talk to anybody on the phone? Yeah. Call them, call the client, talk to them. But yeah,
talk to them. Yeah.
I'm the same way.
And they're like, what's a phone? But
exactly.
A
desk phone? What do you mean a desk phone?
Exactly.
I would say that even if you can reach them technically, you want to pick up that phone occasionally because there's a lot that happens on that conversation.
Go have a tequila together. Go have a tequila together. That always helps.
Yeah, that always works.
It does work. So one of the areas that I'm really interested in, and I was really pleased to hear Secretary Cisneros talk about how he kind of wants to dig into this. This program, the Aspen Institute program, is talking a lot about the MBE space. And I know, Myrna, you have had a lot of success in this space, but I found it incredibly frustrating and kind of condescending, and I was I had so many corporate clients that selected our agency based on our reputation and knowing me and knowing the work and hired us immediately. And about 2 years later, I had one of them say, "Hey, are you an MBE?" And I said, "What's that?" And I got my certification because they wanted me to. They wanted to count their spend with my agency, but I found the world of that very frustrating, and maybe it was because I didn't have the patience to go through it, but I found myself feeling like, I don't need this. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about this. I think there's sort of an unconscious bias that occurs in that space where people think that we can't do it. It's already there anyway. You're already competing. I have one little story that I'll tell where, all the major contracts come out of the state in Arizona. We don't have a lot of major corporate headquarters there. So a lot of the major contracts come out of the state. And every time our agency pitched for a big contract, 10 million plus, we were always, "Oh, you're too small. Oh, you're not." But they'll give it to two white guys working out of a garage.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is a frustration point that I've experienced, and I just love to get your perspective on that.
Well, I believe even though it is frustrating, it is beneficial to the business.
It is beneficial. I think
Because you're
it
leaving
is.
a lot of money on the table. And there are, again, programs out there that can help you fill out that big application, right? Because at the end of the day, that's going to open doors for the small businesses. And you know, going back again to these accelerators that are out there that can help do that. And you know, maybe that's one of the ideas that one of our cities will come up with, you know, that is part of the Aspen group, right? How do we accelerate so that people can be certified faster? You know, there has to be some kind of a cookie cutter approach that we can come up with. Now with technology, create an app, you know, where's Kat? Maybe Kat can create it, one of the gals here from San Antonio. Let's create an app and where people can make it easier to fill in the app.
And somehow work through how that whole system works, right? Rosa, I don't know what
So
your
I've had a
experience-
totally different experience
Good.
being an MBE, a minority business enterprise. You know, when I came out of corporate America, we utilized a lot of MBEs, WBEs, MWBEs, and all of those stand for something, right? And you may know or may not know that MBEs for the government contracts are different than MBEs for corporate contracts. And that's why there's the SBA and all of those certifications and local and city government certifications. And then there's the corporation ones, right? Which is the NMSDC and WeBank, WBENC, for women business enterprise owners. So long story short, these corporations have initiatives to spend so much of their sales with minority business owners. Or, you know, some of them have even specified, you know, African American, others have specified Hispanic, others have specified Asian, right? So knowing what I knew from corporate when I started my business, I got immediately certified in everything I could, right? Everything that I knew of. And then I started using those to open doors up for me. That's all they do, right? They open up the door to build a relationship with the corporation or the organization that you're looking at doing business with. And so very quickly I started getting into on the corporate side because that was the experience I had, not so much the government side. And I started going to a lot of the events where I networked tremendously. I met lots of people, and I started, you know, every year I'd go back to the regional and then the national events. And now I feel like I'm a part of that whole group. I will tell you that, ironically, that particular NMSDC has been traditionally more African American. I guess they focused more on African American growth. Now I see a lot more Hispanics, a lot more than what we used to see. But what we need to do is we need to make people aware of these organizations, and I do that constantly.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I know with the Stanford program, we talked a lot about that. And that if MBEs and WBEs were actually incorporated more, then we would have a tremendous opportunity within our economy to scale.
Yes.
Myrna, do you want to talk a little bit about this space?
Just very briefly, I will say that, and I think, you know, Rosa, I've heard, you know, we had a panel before this panel, so I heard Rosa speak to this. I'm going to remind her of it. You know, I just think that we need to moderate expectations, Lisa, because I think that may have been part of your frustration with the whole process. The fact that you have a minority certification and can bid for a project does not mean you're going to get it. And it also doesn't mean that you have the capacity to fulfill it. Because part of what comes with a lot of these projects is, you know, you have to be able to have cash flow to sustain the real fact that you're not going to get paid for 60, 90 days on these contracts. And you've got to be able to look at your infrastructure and see if you have the staff to be able to satisfy the requirements for the contract, and on the operations side. So I think that you should open any door you can, but like all things, just because the door is open doesn't mean you're going to go through it, because you have to be able to understand that if there's a cliff, on the other side of that door, it may not be such a hot idea to walk through it at warp speed. So,
Yeah, no, I completely understood. And I also think there are equity issues within that
Yeah.
absolutely.
model that need to be resolved. The fact that you would have to wait 60 to 90 days is a little bit absurd. And, I just think we need to look at it. And I'd love to see this group dig into that more, because it's a critical part of access for our communities. And that's what we've been talking about, equitable access to resources and opportunities. And so, we know that the talent is evenly and randomly distributed. I think I could compete head to head with anybody out there. And I'm not going to sit back and say, no, I can't. I can. We just need to be able to have the access. So I think that's a big piece of it.
Very much.
Linda,
Yes,
Lisa, I wanted
Janie.
to add that because we're here as a consortium of these 6 cities, hopefully when you're hearing these thoughts, you can go back into these working groups and say, okay, have we missed this opportunity in our own group? Can we add this piece to it? Because to Mirna's point, if they get the contract, they don't have the capital, okay, now what? So what if we curate the businesses that have the potential and get them ready, get them underwritten, everything is up and running, so when they get the contract, poof, it opens up, right? And they've got everything that they need right there. So, it's great to be able to have these kinds of conversations and figure out best practices from this room.
And let me add just, remember these certifications are basically a license to hunt. That's really all they are.
That's
They're
all
going
it
to open
is.
up the door for you, but they're certainly not going to help you close business. You still have to build a relationship. You still have to show your capacity. You still have to demonstrate results, all of that. And once you're in, you have to really perform and continue to perform to keep that.
Yep.
But, for me, my company, and my group of companies, we've landed lots of business because of those relationships we've built.
We've got some questions.
Okay.
The question's going to be, how do we network in the future, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody still wants to do
Thank you.
things Zoom.
Yeah.
All right, we have some questions from our, thank you. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. What can or should men do, particularly Latino men, to support Latinas in their entrepreneurial quests?
Great question, right?
Yeah, teach them what you know. Don't teach them about your networks as well. Don't be afraid to take them into the room with you.
Yeah, I think that's such a, honestly, I think that's what I have experienced. And it hasn't been just Latino men, it's been men in general who have helped me along the way, taught me about investments, taught me about risk, taught me about contracts. I don't know what you think, Rosa.
And I would say that men don't necessarily know more than Latinas do, or than women do. So, if we can equalize and treat each other that way, I think we'd be better off,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But I've had most opportunities with men too, or through men that have helped me, that have mentored me, and helped me find a way. But I was never treated like I was lower. Or,
Right.
I've never had that experience. So.
No, I don't think you're treated as you're lower, but you're certainly not paid the same amount that your counterparts are paid. and that I venture to say is not just my statement, it's certifiable, it's proof. So I think that, yes, take us into the room, but also take us into the boardroom. Don't just keep us in those rooms where the positions make your life easier, your ability to shine better. Make sure that we also are given an opportunity to make decisions and to be a part of the actual solution for whatever problem the corporate entity or the small business may be facing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's another question similar from Marta Montoya. Marta, are you out there somewhere? Why don't you tell me exactly what you're referring to here, because it sounds similar.
Fundraising for women, for us Latinas. Fundraising, I'm not talking contracts, I'm talking fundraising. A lot of Latinos get together and they do business together, but they don't fundraise with us women, Latinas.
Okay,
So I
so
go to Silicon Valley $2 million and now my $10 million outside of the Latino men, but with the white guys.
Yeah, so any thoughts on that?
And I know that the guys are doing the business among themselves because I've seen it.
That's what I was referring to earlier, right? About we need to create our good old girls network. You know, the good old boys have had theirs for many, 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 many years. So how do we, raise up, right? Let's start it.
And I think this panel is completely open to supporting any Latina entrepreneurs out there now if they need anything or have any questions. And that's what we're here to do, is really start paving the way for others. So Myrna, do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I think that, we can beat this one to death when there's really no need. All we have to do is try our very best to also surround ourselves with the right types of men, women, people, understand that sort of supportive environment where you see that decisions are being made in a group, where your opinion is valued, that's where you want to be. And I think that is genderless. And I think that for the longest time, women have been concerned about leaving a position because it might be difficult to replicate the same position at the same level if you leave. And I think that you'll find that you are the same person. So you will eventually open the same path for yourself that you had where you were at. So either you're taking the risk of starting your business or you're making a move because you just don't like where you're at. Those are all positions and sort of decisions that the time is now for.
We have a question here about if language or idioma matters. What are our thoughts about the language gap, especially with financial services? Janie?
Yeah, when we started LiftFund back 27 years ago, I didn't even know what a loan officer was called in Spanish, asesor. So those are the kinds of things that we have to, learn a new vocabulary when you talk about finances, right? And so yes, there is a learning curve of what is even the stock market, right? And how does it work? How do you have people how do you use other people's money? All of those phrases that are out there. We were talking the other day, I was over in Henry's office and we were talking about a project and he said, we can have a capital stack, and the Latino in the room said, do you mean, I'm so sorry, do you have, is that a typo there? Did you mean stock? And no, it's stack. He didn't know what the stack was, right? So learning these financial words is so important to be able to negotiate and to be able to be credible. And those are the things that we just have to be confident in. And when I was growing up, we never talked about stocks or anything. Little did I know, years later, I would be ringing the New York Stock Exchange under the Obama administration, right? So it's things like that, but we have to educate ourselves.
Rosa?
As it pertains to financial and that, yes, definitely we need to educate ourselves. And now I have Janie, right? I can call Janie and say, what does this mean? What does that mean? Because sometimes I honestly can tell you, I feel stupid because I don't know certain terms. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm running this big business and I don't know what that means. Well, we shouldn't feel that way because, we weren't born with that information. Right. So absolutely, I think that's important, that we lean on each other and for that information.
So it's not just Spanish, it's also financial language.
Absolutely, totally.
And then we have a question about if we can talk about some of the local partnerships your organizations have worked with to assist Latina entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Some local organizations or partnerships.
Well, I think all our cities must have them. We can probably all address those, but there are national associations too. So it would be like the women, even the women's business centers are so important. They're affiliated with the SBA, and most of the major cities have women's business centers that are very powerful in terms of this networking. So I would encourage people to reach out to those cities and to those groups in those cities. And also, you know, I was talking to some groups last night. I mean, like, I think, Kat, you've got some investment groups for Latinas. So it's just, they're out there. We just need to, you know, I don't know, create a directory of some sort. How do we get a reservoir of things that are reputable too? Because
I think one of the positive things that has happened as a result of COVID is that a lot of websites have been put up to sort of try to harness resources in the different communities. So I would encourage you to look for a website in your area, and your municipality will be able to direct you. The service organizations will be able to direct you to that one source that will be able to, at the very least, provide a snapshot of what's available in your community and who's doing what to whom. And that's, if there's one, I think, result of COVID is the preponderance of websites to try to bring together resources in one spot. So I think that more of that is available now than ever before.
I'm going to let you have a couple of closing statements because I think we've covered most everything and I don't have any other questions. So let's go ahead and have a closing statement from each of you just about where you think we go from here.
Do you want me to
Janie.
start? Okay. Well, little factoid is that we look at our portfolio, the best paying customer is a Latina. She pays back her loans.
Yeah.
So I think we need to open up those gates more for us to be able to find those women who are good, because can you imagine, they manage the house already, so obviously they can manage the business too. And then another point would be is to surround yourselves. All of us need to surround ourselves with people smarter than us even.
That's right.
And be able to accept what we hear and put it into best practices. And I think this is why I'm so excited about being here today, is because we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure out what to do next. The opportunity is now, and if we don't grab it, it's gonna be gone. And you know, I was listening earlier to some, you know, we hear about black caucuses and urban leagues and all these kinds of things, and you know, where's a Latino in all that? And I was not always this outspoken. I'm usually pretty quiet in terms of making political statements or what I think is political, or maybe some people will consider it political, you know, working in the not-for-profit world, but I'm not sitting back anymore. We've got to do something. We've got to be able to make the changes now, because people are listening now. And so let's go grab it and let's move.
Thank you, Janie.
So I echo your sentiments, Janie, and I really believe that there's a greater opportunity for us out there in doing business with corporate America. If you all don't know, I'm the first Hispanic woman-owned direct Tier 1 supplier to Toyota, and I'm really proud of that. Thank you, thank you. And I tell you this because, you know, I became the first one 6 years ago, and I don't see another one right behind me, another one in line. So I keep dragging and bringing people on board and trying to mentor people, because I want there to be another one and another one and another one after that. It's really, really important and really critical that we lean in and mentor women, that we do business with each other. It's important and it's critical that we help each other, because that's what everybody else does. You know, you were talking about the Urban League. You know, they all help each other and they help each other grow. We need to do more of that. We do some, but we don't do enough. And to your point about capital, I know there's groups out there, but there should be more. I'd be interested in finding out a little bit more about your business and maybe connecting you with some of the people that I know are doing some of that.
Perfect. Thank you, Rosa.
I think in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it short. I think the time is now. I don't think you are as alone as you think you are. And initiatives like this one that we're also blessed to be working with from the Aspen Institute is going to be a significant catalyst in bringing those opportunities to the forefront and in allowing you to see that you're not alone and that you can access resources. But sometimes, like Jamie was saying, you need to step up and get the help yourself because it's out there.
Yeah,
That's right.
so that's exactly right. Porque juntos podemos salir adelante, no? And so thank you so much to this beautiful panel for sharing your thoughts with us today, and we appreciate you all taking time to listen in.
Thank you.
Wasn't that fantastic? One more round of applause, please. That is what empowered Latinas look like. It really is music to my ears to see them already problem solving, already adding the list of the possibilities in the lab. So it's coming to really to fruition, a vision. And I do think we're going to develop a blueprint for Latino economic development.